Hi, I'm Coach Amber, and welcome to the Meet RX Success Story podcast. Today we have Coach Kerrie with us, and she will be talking about her success story. Welcome, Kerrie.
Hello.
Hi. So, Kerrie, tell us a little bit about what was going on in your life prior to starting Carnivore. Were you having any health issues or anything like that? What made you want to try Carnivore?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story and very not typical at all. I've always been very active in fitness and health. I actually was in the military for 10 years and always super active. And so last year, I started doing some research because my mom, who is almost 60, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's early onset, and she's already in stage 4 right now. So it's very rapid onset. And I've always had a poor memory, and brain health concerns me. And as I came across some research for KetoCon, I also came across information about carnivore. But carnivore was very extreme. So obviously keto seems to be more of a stepping stone for a lot of people. So brain health was my initial reasoning. I started researching it. Also at the time, I'm a competitive powerlifter in the USPA, and I had been lifting competitively for a year, and I had just gotten out of a bulk phase. So if you're familiar at all with how weight goes with powerlifting, people usually bulk up, so gain a bunch of weight and then cut back to lift in the weight class they want to lift in. And that's a terrible pattern for your body to go through, and it's hard. And so I went through my first real bulk. I was almost 200 pounds, mostly muscle, but there definitely was some fat that I gained during like 4-month bulk. So almost a year ago now. So we're talking March of last year. I had just went into my first real cut of my life. I'm almost 40, and I've never been on a diet in my whole life, ever. It's always been my personal philosophy to exercise more and just eat however I wanted to eat. That's how I've lived my life. Eat how I want to eat. And so I went into a cut, and I thought, okay, I have a nutrition specialization. You know, I can coach people in nutrition, but maybe I don't know anything. I should ask the experts. And so I got a nutrition coach an RD, like she was an RD, and she told me everything wrong. It was so frustrating. But anyway, she had me go and do the traditional high carb, super low fat, restrict your calories. And for 3 months, my life was hell. It was the worst thing of my entire life. Pouring my kids a bowl of cereal caused me so much stress because all I wanted was one little piece of cereal. And I was like, this is insane. No wonder people say dieting is hard. I've never done this. And this is the hardest thing in my life. I have 2 kids, and this is harder than having kids. And so at the end of that cut, it was, I started in March. Yeah. So March, I got down to 171, which is where more than I wanted to. I really just wanted to be under 180, but I got in the 170s, and I thought there has to be an easier way. This can't be like real. Like this cannot be the best way to do this. And I'm always learning. So I've been coaching and doing fitness and health for almost 20 years. And I'd never come across any other way to diet other than cut your calories. And so as I combined the thing with my mom and thinking about brain health and coming across KetoCon, and I started reading a bunch of presentations from KetoCon, and there's a few athletes in there, and there's a few mostly bodybuilders. And so I started thinking, I wonder if this is all real, like if this would really work. And it seemed like everyone was happy, and nobody seemed stressed out like most traditional dieters are, or hangry, I think is the word, right? So that was when I decided, okay, I'm going to maintain my 170s. That's where I'm happy at. You know, I was under 20% body fat. That seemed good. That's where I really wanted to sit. And so I immediately took my already relatively low carb, because I was only eating about 100 carbs a day normally, because that's where my body just felt happy at. And that was before knowing anything about low carb. And so I decided to just go keto. And I started cutting out carbs that I didn't like anyway. And when I talked to my RD about it, she didn't say a word. Like, she wouldn't say anything. She wouldn't even give me an opinion about keto or low carb at all. And so she said, okay, do what you think you need to do. And I'm like, why am I paying you? This is ridiculous. And so I did. And for a month, and then I fired her after a month because she was giving me no use, but ended our contract early. And I naturally fell into carnivore from that. So knowing my body didn't like carbs, and, you know, they tasted okay, but this was a reason to stop eating vegetables. Like, I didn't have to, you know, being almost 40, and you finally realize I don't have to force broccoli on my kids' plates. Like, I don't have to make them eat this, and it's okay for me too. And so it was very natural to go into carnivore without even really having researched much about it. And so within a month, so by the end of like April, I was eating only animal products naturally. And then every once in a while I'd have some olives because I thought, oh, I have to have some kind of vegetable, at least a little bit. Right. So it kind of naturally evolved into carnivore, and needing to have an increase in protein for my weightlifting, because I definitely want to maintain my muscle mass and actually build muscle. My main concern has always been keep my protein high, which lends itself more to carnivore anyway. All the research I did on keto would bash protein. Like, protein is terrible. Stop eating protein. I'm like, you guys are insane. You're crazy. I mean, I know enough to know I need to have some protein to build some muscles. So it kind of naturally evolved into that. And we have a family, 2 little boys and my husband. And so I'm doing my husband and my boys were still on SAD diet just because I felt like a bad parent. Like, you're not letting your kids have carbs or whatever. But my husband's kind of followed along, but he's a little hesitant to give stuff up. But he fell into keto pretty easily. But hadn't bought into carnivore until more recently. But for my real concern being brain health, it doesn't take very many stories of a child with a brain tumor and them having success with keto or carnivore. It doesn't take many of those stories to convince you that it is a better way. And can you find research on it? It's hard. It's hard to find research that backs it. But you know what? Listening to a mom, being a mom, it took one. It took one story of a woman talking about her child that was around my little son's age, had a brain tumor, and they don't magically disappear. But her story specifically, it was, they adapted, I think, low carb, keto. I'm not sure how carnivore they were, but it was definitely in that realm, along with the traditional standards of care. And in the end, it was gone. And, you know, that was it. And that was like, okay, how do I get my kids to eat this way? Because if I can fix my memory a little bit, I have a terrible memory naturally. And I figured there's no way to make that better. And with the concern with Alzheimer's, and it may or may not be genetic is what they say. And, you know, you don't know, just take your chances. If it can help any of that, it's definitely worth a try. And so I got myself at that point into carnivore, figure everything out, do the research I can do, and then bring the family along. So that's kind of how it started.
Awesome. It's amazing what nutrient-dense whole food can do for a person.
Yes.
So I hear these stories all the time, and they're all so very amazing. Not magical, but very amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get into a typical day for you when it comes to eating. How did you start the diet, and how are you following it now? Do you include dairy or coffee or spices? And did you have any transitional issues?
Well, one of the biggest challenges that I had was digestive issues. So I had diarrhea for 3 months, and I had decided when I started that no matter what, I'm not stopping. There were moments where I thought, oh my God, I can do this. It's going to end eventually. I tried everything too. I tried digestive enzymes. I tried spreading my meals out. My gut took time to adjust to the amount of fat. And because forever I was low fat, like everybody, I I don't blame it. I don't blame my body. But I had decided ahead of time that I wasn't going to quit. You know, it was going to happen. Just stick with it. And I'm glad I did. I mean, granted, it took literally 3 months, and then things just figured themselves out, which seems weird, but you know, it did. And I had tried everything. Like and that's one reason I evolved into carnivore, because I was trying to cut everything out to figure out what it was, what's causing it. You know, one of my last strongholds was macadamia nuts. And I love nuts and I wanted to keep them. It was like one of my nuts and my coffee. And I want to keep those. I'm going to cut everything else up, but please let me keep those. I even cut dairy out for a while because so many people have struggled with dairy. I figured, oh, it's dairy. Oh, it's dairy. No, it's not dairy. I can still have my heavy cream and my coffee, and I don't have any digestive issues at all with it. And so that was only my one real transition issue was that I didn't really have any type of carnivore keto flu. I mean, literally a day or two, but I already started pretty low carb. And so I imagine that's most of it. And I didn't really eat much sugar. So I didn't have a huge change, definitely between the two. I did struggle with migraines before I started Carnivore too, which was nice to see that there's actually several people that go hunting for carnivore to get rid of migraines. And it's something I had that I didn't even know was an option to get rid of, and they're gone. Once I figured out magnesium was the one catch on that. And so once I took a little bit of magnesium supplement, they're gone at all. But the nuts, so back to the nuts, I was holding on to those the nuts, and I was, what was it? So it was down to meat and macadamia butter, like a huge $100 big, huge thing in the fridge. And I would just eat spoonfuls of it out. Right. And so I had my coffee and I had my macadamia nuts and meat, and that was all I was really eating. And so I said, okay, I cut out the cream and the coffee, and it's still happening. And so the only thing left is the meat. Okay, the fat may be part of it. And the nuts. I thought, okay, I'm going to get rid of the nuts. I don't want to, but I'm going to. And I did. And the migraines went along with it. So the migraines were attached to the oxalates or something in the nuts. And the migraines went away. The diarrhea didn't. That definitely was attached to the meat and the fat. But it definitely got rid of the migraines. And I tested it a few times. I'm like, no way. So I ate like 6 tablespoons of macadamia nuts. And I was like, nope, it's not going to happen. Tomorrow morning, woke up, migraine. I did that 2 days in a row, ate several tablespoons, migraine both days. And in a row, it was clearly, okay, how many times do you have to do this before you believe it's the macadamia nuts? So, got rid of those. And I was happy to keep my coffee because I like coffee. It don't need it. My husband and I were just talking about this year if we wanted to just cut out coffee in January and see, but we're not having issues with it. And so neither one of us are at all. So he went carnivore as well. And we're not having any issues that we're trying to resolve. So why change what's working? And so we decided to hang on to coffee for this year right now because we enjoy it more so than need it. I think it's one of those, if we forget it, it's not a big deal, but it's nice, especially on the weekends when everybody's home and you can sit and enjoy a cup of coffee. We enjoy that. And so my diet now, so we have coffee and we have meat, and was August. So school started in August and both of our boys are in private school. And so we were able to go to ground school. They're on the ground. They've been on the ground in school since August. And at the same time, I decided we're getting rid of the carbs for the kids. And I have a 9-year-old, and he's a boy, and he is a typical boy. And they all say it, focus is hard. And he's just being a boy, and it's just his age from pre-K. That's what his teachers have always said. He has a really hard time focusing, but he's doing good. He's so well mannered. He's such a good kid, but he has a hard time focusing. So in August, we got rid of the carbs, and I stopped buying the crackers and the cereal. And I said, when these are gone, and I'm telling this to myself, I'm not going to buy another box. Done. And so that's what I did with all the processed carbs. And of course, we live in South Carolina. And so there's a lot of fresh fruit that's grown locally that the kids enjoy. They enjoy apples and they enjoy tangerines. And so I kept those in the fridge. And I said, oh, you can always have a banana. You can always have an orange, but I want saltine crackers, Mom. I'm sorry, they're gone. And that took about a month. And then it was, okay, I know what I can have. And they made better choices. Now the 2 boys are keto. I don't count anything for them. It's just a matter of, you can always have a fresh fruit, or I got a dehydrator for Christmas, and we've been making jerky the last couple of days. I'm already on my 2nd round, and it's only the 2nd or the 3rd. And the huge shoulder roast. It's coming out of the dehydrator now, and the boys love it. Make it super thin and cook it longer so it's crunchy like a chip. Oh, it's awesome. So they do cheese, and they do lots of meat. The baby, which is almost 3 now, so not much of a baby, he loves cheese and cheese crackers. And after that month, it's really so natural for them, and they're really taking to that lower carb. And speaking of school, so it's now halfway through the year, and we got the best report card ever from our 9-year-old. His teachers, it was like night and day different in his focus, and his grades have always been good, but it was just her comments about his focus. And I think the big thing was cutting out sugar and the carbs, like the processed carbs, I tell you. And so that's been amazing to see him change. And that's kind of where the kids are. The husband is definitely, he's with me now, whether he eats what I put out on the table, right? And like most the spouse that doesn't cook. So he's just eats whatever I make. And so he knows I'm making meat, so he's going to eat meat. And he loves steak. So if I grilled steak on the charcoal grill every night, and we had a lot more money to buy the really good steak, that would be what we have. But we usually we buy a cow. So I think we're almost running out of our cow, actually, that we just bought a few months ago. So we found a local farmer, wherever we live. So we're in the military. So we move every few years. So I have to refine my resources. And we found a grass-fed finished local farmer that I drove to the farm, and I picked up the cow in the back and brought it home to the deep freeze, and it filled our huge deep freeze full, which is wonderful. So we eat something out of there. We'd have a lot of ground hamburger because the boys like it, the little boys like it. And I was just looking for some more steaks, because the first thing we ran out of from the cow were the steaks. Of course, you have a fruit, roast. So we do roast, a lot of ground hamburgers, steaks. Seafood. So one thing, I did a vitamin analysis at the end of the year. So right at a year since I had transitioned to low carb, most definitely to see where my vitamins were at, because the other concern I had was, and you hear people say, you can't get all the vitamins on carnivore, right? And I don't know enough about micros in our nutrition to really know. And I was very pleased to see, because I had an allergic reaction also a year ago, which was another reason I started looking at my diet again. I broke out in hives, for almost a month. It was horrible. And so I did an analysis then, which lined up to the year, right 1 year before the one I just did again. And they both included a vitamin analysis and an allergy, like sensitivity analysis. I mean, it was a hair follicle. So, it, looks the last 3 months essentially, which I've been all carnivore the last 3 months now. So I wanted to see how my vitamin balance had changed from the year prior, when I was just basically on a low carb SAD diet. And it was totally nothing like it was a year ago. And the only major things were my electrolytes. So my sodium, my potassium, my magnesium were in a yellow zone, which I don't know if that's just because they're fluid in your body, but yellow's not terrible. And so I upped my electrolytes recently to make sure that's not an issue, but they were in the yellow zone. And none of the other, so I was low in vitamin C on my low carb SAD diet. I was low in, not calcium, I can't remember what it was, but C was the big one. D12. And those were the only two that really flagged prior. And so it was nice to see that those were in the green. There was absolutely no issues at all. And really the only imbalance or things I might be lacking were, keep on top of my electrolytes a little better. And magnesium, I think, was on there. Yeah, magnesium, potassium, and sodium. So that was nice to see that you can get your vitamins on a carnivore diet. Sometimes I'm analytical, and so I do like to see in paper that is still the case. So as far as amount, it's hard for me to get enough meat. So my husband and I were just saying, he looks at his plate when I serve it, like I dish up his plate, and he's like, how much meat is this? Is this 2 pounds? And it's not 2 pounds. It was like, I said, well, it's what do we have? We had ham steak today. So the local farmer also does pork. We found another local farmer that does pasture pork, which is amazing. And it tastes so much different than like regular from the grocery store pork. It is very good. So we tried his pork steaks today, his ham steaks. And so it was like not even a pound of ham steak and just a regular strip steak of some kind, not even a pound of that. So he might have had just over a pound and a couple of eggs. So we also found the same farmer that does pasture pork does eggs. And so I go every Saturday to a farmer's market we have, and I get 4 dozen eggs from this farmer and some type of pork, because we try something new. They have great bacon. So we do bacon a couple times a week from the pasture pork. And I grind my own. I do my own grinds whenever we don't buy a cow that's already ground. So I grind the pork. And so as far as we had heart and liver from the cow we had bought. And so I grind that this time I ground it into the pork sausage. And so and you can't even taste it, especially with the seasonings we use in the pork. So I definitely put seasoning in the pork, and we use seasoning pretty liberally. Just season like your powdered onion or your powdered garlic and your paprika and your cumin, salt and pepper. We do that. We usually do sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, or the 2 that I buy. And we do black pepper. And essentially it goes back to, are we having an issue with it? And so right now on our current diet, I get around a pound of meat. I try and get a pound of meat a day. Some days I do a little better. And I do a couple eggs a day, and cheese. So cheese and dairy, we love cheese, and the kids love it. And it's a good way to get extra fat for us, because I just can't stomach the fat, but I can stomach it in cheese. And so one reason we've kept the cheese and dairy is nobody has a real issue with it digestively. And I just have to remind myself not to let my cheese overtake my plate, because I do need the vitamins from the meat. But if I'm not careful, I'll eat more cheese than I'm eating meat. And that's not a good thing. So I definitely have to for me personally, I have to control how much cheese I have. So I usually don't have more than like an ounce or 2 of cheese. And then I do have, for heavy cream, I like heavy cream in my coffee. And I do probably 4 ounces of heavy cream a day. And I have to keep it limited to that, because obviously I want to take more of my protein, not my protein, but more of my vitamins from the meat. So we do dairy, and we do eggs, and we do lots of beef, a little bit of pork. And since we are in South Carolina, I was just telling my husband I need to go to the fish market. We have a really awesome local fresh fish market. I go about once a week and go pick out something that's fresh and good. And we like to use the air fryer, which is awesome. Air fryer, charcoal grill. The dehydrator is new, so we're playing with that a little bit. And I don't really use a crock pot much, but that's about it.
Awesome. And I know what you mean about macadamia nuts. That is my that cannot be within a block of meat. It's not I cannot control myself. I don't know what the deal is with that. I had never even had one. And then first time on keto, that was a mistake. But oh God. Anyway, so let's get to the positive things that you've noticed improved since what you were talking about earlier, memory and all that. What has improved for you? And was there anything that you found kind of shocking that you weren't expecting?
Definitely shocking. I kind of already mentioned were the migraines. It's not something I went into thinking I'm going to knock out these migraines by going carnivore. That's been the biggest blessing probably, because my migraines are bad. Since I had my 9-year-old, I had chronic migraines. We're talking multiple times a week, and they just never got better. And so that was the biggest change, was getting rid, and the most surprising, probably most impactful. Because if anybody's had a migraine, you know how they can just end your day. And as a mom, that's hard, because your kids are still going to need something. You know, you can't just go to bed 99% of the time. Other benefits have definitely been brain function, just being able to think longer, quicker. I always make lists, and that's a chronic thing of having poor memory my entire life. But I don't need to make lists as much. It seems like I don't feel so attached to making a list of the things to do or the grocery store or whatever it is. So I feel sharper when it comes to the brain, and my energy is awesome. So one big transition as a powerlifter, I lift heavy and I lift a lot. And so I lift 5 days a week, and it's pretty intense. And my recovery has really improved. And so it took a while. So it took a solid 3 to 4 months before my body figured out how to burn fat, and I had energy for my workouts like before. The nice thing was, before I felt like I had to have caffeine or a pre-workout or something like that. But after about 4 months, I didn't need anything. I wanted to be fasted. And that shocked me too. Like, I have always lived my life as an athlete knowing I had to have something before I worked out, whether that was a pre-workout drink, a shot of amino acids. You know, I've tried anything and everything, but then all of a sudden I didn't need it. Once I embraced the idea that maybe I don't need something before I work out, let me see how this goes. That was hard. Just admitting to myself that I was been wrong for 30 years, you know, that's something that's kind of prideful. Like, I didn't tell anybody I was doing that just in case it didn't work, but that's what I did. And my workouts have now gone from needing something initially. We're talking like only 200 grams of caffeine is what I was doing before, or having like a protein shake with a banana. It was what I did before. And now I'll have dinner the night before at like 5 o'clock. We eat pretty early. And then I work out at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I don't need anything other than my electrolytes. Like, Element T is the one we love. Like, we have Element T, always have it, or Element, I think is how you say it. And I have a thing of that, and that's it. I don't feel like I need anything. And when I'm actually working out, I feel more energy than what I did before. And it's really hard to explain. And I don't know. I have no idea. You know, it's kind of very shocking. But my workouts definitely feel just as solid as before, if not better. And my recovery. So I was talking about my recovery initially. So deadlifts are the most taxing lift that I do. And for most powerlifters, it recruits the most, it takes the most out of your CNS. And so once a week was all I could manage. And sometimes I had to do it every 2 weeks, like a super heavy deadlift. But now I can easily do them once a week, and I'm ready to do my next lift. And so I can do the super taxing stuff quicker. Like, I don't have to give it that much more of time for recovery. And I'm almost 40. So I turned 39 here in a couple of weeks. So as I age as well, we tend to see recovery decline, and seeing my recovery improve as I'm aging and reaching that, you know, that benchmark is really satisfying. And so that's definitely been a surprising and a positive change as well. Something I totally didn't expect. The ease of maintaining my current weight. And so I have no desire to lose weight. It's never been a goal. But maintaining is important. So as most women in the past, I would go up and down 20 pounds, you know, easy. And most of it was water weight. But I don't. I'm super stable within 3 pounds, plus or minus 3 pounds, all month long, any time of the year. and it's reassuring and it feels better emotionally with so the emotions you have attached to your weight and how you look, that just feels good. And it's not hard. I'm not going crazy. I'm not hangry. I'm not mad at the world because I'm on a diet and I can't have that piece of cereal. You know what I mean? But I can have that beef jerky if I really, really want it, right? It's right there. If I really want something, you know, I usually have cold bacon in the fridge that's really crunchy, or we have beef jerky now on the counter that if I really want to eat something, it's there. But another benefit that I've seen is the cravings disappeared immediately for me. So that pouring my son a bowl of cereal example from earlier, those were the cravings. And they are so real. Until I no longer had those cravings, I would never believe that people are addicted to carbs. Like have worked with some drug addicted people in the past, and I've worked in some veteran outreach programs that do with a lot with addiction. And other than carbs, I've never been addicted to anything in my life, but I didn't realize it was the same thing. Like thinking about how much I wanted that stupid cereal, and someone who really wants to smoke crack or whatever their, drug of choice is, those are very similar feelings. And that was really hard. And so like in the moment, and definitely when I think back on it, it gives me a lot more empathy for people that are dealing with those addictions. And then I think about the entire world is addicted to carbs and they don't understand that they don't have to be. And so it's a wonderful feeling knowing that I don't even want it. Like, I love ice cream. It's been my vice my entire life. That's my one little treat that I love. And did you know there's carnivore ice cream? Oh, it's wonderful. And whenever I share it with someone who doesn't know it's a thing, they're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And so one thing with our kids is I don't want to deprive them of having sweets and treats from time to time, but I want them to understand how to make good choices. And so over the holidays, I made a few keto treats for them. One is ice cream. And so as you may know, all it is yolks from our amazing pasture-raised eggs, which are wonderful. So our yolks and our heavy cream and water. And for the boys, I do in 2 batches. So for the boys, I add a little bit of sweetener, some monk fruit sweetener. And for my husband and I, we just don't do the sweetener. And it's a nice little treat. And it's just nice to have that, I totally lost track of the question I was answering.
Oh, you did good. You answered it perfectly. So let's go ahead and get to the last question.
Okay.
And you are a member of MeatRx, and you are also a coach with MeatRx.com. Could you go over what you feel are benefits of being a member? And also, what is your coaching philosophy like in case somebody would like to book with you?
Awesome. Yes. So I am fasting and a carnivore coach. And the beauty is I've been in the industry for so long that I am excited to add specific carnivore to my my list of letters, right? And fasting as well. So one thing that I also really enjoy is fasting myself. And so I didn't mention this before, but normally I do OMAD, and doing the research on the benefits of fasting, and because my body that's just how I naturally feel comfortable, and I'm not really hungry. And so as long as I can get my whole pound of protein in initially, I don't worry about it. And if we're hungry, I eat again, but if not, I don't. And so anyway, that's been nice to really get both of those pieces. So the fasting and the carnivore, and being part of MeatRx. So one of the first people I found when I was doing some research was Dr. ShawnBaker, of course. And because I was looking for athletes, and as an athlete myself, it was important for me to try and find someone that had already done it. Now there's not a lot out there. And so he was one that popped up, and I see him on my Instagram, as he goes by and he's doing something, and the MeatRx stuff that he references. And so I'd never really looked at MeatRx until recently. I was looking for a way to do some work virtually, and some coaching virtually without having to create my own platform. And embracing carnivore more recently, I love the idea of really working within that community specifically. And so that's where I came around, because I was looking for fasting and a course of keto or carnivore that someone had, so I can make sure I learned more. I already had a pretty good base knowledge because of my own analytical mind. I love to look at research and find out information, but I figured I should find a course or something to fill in the blanks to make sure I wasn't missing some of the basics before I tried to coach someone specifically on fasting or carnivore. And then I came across, obviously I was already following Dr. Baker. And so I came across his course and I figured, you know what, it's definitely worth seeing, making sure I didn't miss anything out. And so that's what kind of brought me to MeetRx. And of course, I've listened to him on the podcast, and I love his podcast. And there's a couple of others that I really track and watch and listen to in the car. So the other benefit I noticed as soon as I signed up on MeetRx, obviously I wanted to do those 2 courses and make sure, learn from the best. And so Dr. Baker's been doing it for a few years, like 5 or 6, I think, right? And I really like his approach and just the way and his opinion about things that I've heard him speak of on the podcast. And so I wanted to see what I could learn from him specifically in the course he had created. And then getting into the MeetRx website, the thing that I was really pleased to see was the list of all the references. And so being someone who likes to read research and likes to see in black and white and kind of analyze for myself, I was very impressed with the amount of research that's been pinned in there that I didn't have to find. And it's all organized nicely in different topics. And of course, the first ones I look for are migraines and Alzheimer's and, the things related to the conditions that I, was concerned with. And that's the thing I really enjoyed the most. I haven't been on MeetRx very long, so I really look forward to jumping in on some of the meetings. I already listened to the podcast almost every day. I listen to one of them or another, and so I really enjoy those. But there's definitely some member exclusive benefits and meetings and things that I'm looking forward to jumping into. So that's another awesome piece of it. And then as far as my coaching and not nutrition, but my coaching philosophy, regardless of what I'm coaching, as far as fasting or carnivore or any of that, it really is baby steps lead us to success. And so over the years, I've noticed that people that make small changes over time tend to be more successful than those that just jump in cold turkey, give it all to me now. And so that's kind of how I approach it. So very member person specific, but even if those little changes are every couple of days, or those little changes are once a week, or if I've had clients that's once a month, all I can handle is one little thing, let's add it on one a month. And that works for them, and meeting them where they are. And so meeting my clients where they are, taking baby steps to get to their goals is really kind of how I approach coaching in general. So
well said. I like that. Very good. So if y'all are looking for a carnivore or fasting coach, go check out Kerrie with a K, Coach Kerrie, on meetrx.com. And Kerrie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye, Kerrie.
Bye.